Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, inducts the Great Muta into the WWE Hall of Fame 2023. Welcome back, guys, to Fog Wrestling. I had no idea the Nature Boy was inducting the Great Muta. Then they introduced the Nature Boy, and I'm thinking, oh my god, this is going to be a car crash. Ric Flair on a live Hall of Fame with a mic. Anything could happen. Funny thing is, though, I mean, Ric Flair actually kind of held it together. He did go off topic a little bit, but, you know, it wasn't that bad. However, Ric Flair does what Ric Flair does, and he makes the entire thing about himself. So, Ric makes his way down to the ring. Ric gets into the ring. He goes through the ropes. Everyone else walks up the steps, but Ric Flair goes through the ropes, and then he addresses that he's going through the ropes. He calls himself the Nature Boy and woo and all that stuff. He's got a piece of paper with him, and he said he's going to tell some stories about the Great Muta. And you're thinking, okay, I mean, Ric Flair, every time Ric Flair tells stories, it takes about 10 hours to tell one story. But then he proceeds to talk he basically, instead of telling stories about the Great Muta, Ric Flair just kind of tells stories about himself and about his time in Japan. And Ric Flair is more or less, he spends the whole speech talking about himself and his time in Japan. Barely anything about the Great Muta. And I'm not saying Ric Flair meant to be disrespectful, but I think this is just Ric Flair, you know. At old age as well, maybe he's not as competent and coherent as he used to be, but he just seems to ramble on about stuff. And 1 minute he's talking about Japan, the next minute he's talking about squats, then he's talking about the Steiners. They'll tell you they were in Japan. Ask the Steiners if you don't believe me. And he's pointing at the Steiners, and he's pointing about Asuka. Then he mentions a bunch of Japanese guys that could whoop his ass, that beat his ass real hard in Japan. What the hell is this? Ric Flair's going through a bunch of names. He can't even pronounce half the names. He's yeah, this guy right here. And it's what the hell? And then he gets towards the end. And then Ric Flair's I need to start wrapping this speech up, or else Triple H is going to come out here and pull me away. And how embarrassing is that? And Ric Flair's actually saying how embarrassing it is. So I mean, it's he almost knows that his time is up, but he still goes on. And then he talks about Shawn Michaels, and he says, "Yeah, Shawn, you thought you invented the moonsault. You didn't, buddy. This guy did it, but don't tell Shawn that." And it's what the hell? And yeah, just classic Ric Flair. The Great Muta comes out. The Great Muta makes his way to the ring, and Ric Flair meets him, handshakes him, and then Ric Flair again takes to the podium. And again, Ric Flair, I mean, it's this guy's Hall of Fame speech, and nothing against Ric, but he does kind of make it about himself again. He takes the mic, and then he talks about his son Reed and how the Great Muta looked after Reed as if he was his own, and he says he'll always love him and thank him. And I mean that's okay and stuff, but I mean, I just feel like he should have included that in his original speech, or I don't know. I mean, this is supposed to be the Great Muta's time, and Ric Flair just goes on, or goes off on one, should I say. But, he done an okay job. I was actually expecting Ric Flair to be worse here. I was expecting maybe Triple H and Shawn Michaels and the McMahon to have to come out and drag him off the stage, because he does get carried away. But you know what? Maybe cut down on the alcohol here. And who knows? I was half expecting Ric Flair to start chopping the shit out of the Great Muta and challenge him to one more match. Ric Flair, WrestleMania 39, Ric Flair versus Muta one last time, 60-minute Iron Man match. Then Ric Flair leaves, the Great Muta takes over. The Great Muta's me no speak the English very good, ha ha. But the thing is, I mean, the Great Muta probably speaks English better than Ric Flair at this stage of his career. Ric Flair mumbling away, like I said, very forgetful, just rambles on about random shit, really. So at least the Great Muta kept it simple. He's I don't speak English very well, thank you. And he bowed down, and he clapped his hands, and he was yeah, thank you guys. And I mean, that was pretty much it. He just thanked everybody in WWE, thanked the WWE Universe. And yeah, that was pretty much it. The guy just came out and said thank you. So I mean, that's it. Great Muta comes out and says thank you. It showed you Nakamura, it showed you Asuka. I guess all these people learned and all aspired to be wrestlers because of the Great Muta. I personally didn't really see much of him. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll go back and watch his stuff. I'm not denying that he doesn't deserve to be in it. I mean, based on what I've heard and what I've seen statistic-wise, what he's accomplished. I mean, he's been in the ring with greats like Ric Flair and Sting. Ric Flair also mentioned how he thought that the Great Muta changed his mind and wanted Sting to induct him. I mean, again, Ric Flair rambling. But, no, I mean, he probably deserves it. I just don't really know the Great Muta that much. But there you go, guys. He's now in the Hall of Fame, and he was inducted by the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Whew, that's it. Catch you in the next one, guys. Rey Mysterio still to come. And, of course, lots of content over the weekends. Stand and Deliver, WrestleMania Night 1, Night 2. Like I said, lots of content. So stay tuned, stay subscribed, and I'll catch you in the next one. But until then, peace.